Good afternoon. Hi, everyone. It's past 1 o'clock, so let's get started. So thank you for coming today. We're here to provide you an education and background on how to be successful and apply for the Career Tech Education Program. So this is the last funding round for Proposition 51, so we're super excited, and we're partnering here with the Department of Education, and then you'll get an extensive overview of the program and how it works with the Department of Education. And then after that, you'll get a definitely great overview from our staff at Office of Public School Construction. So I'm Lisa Silverman. I'm the executive officer of this program, and I can't tell you how excited we are about the $250 million that is in this next round. So the goal is to actually get the projects in through the Department of Education, and then likewise, the second step is for those folks who are eligible for funding to actually apply for funding once you have a score of 105 or higher. And we'll talk to you about the streamlined process, but again, the goal is to submit those applications by April, and then we'll be introducing those items to the board for funding. So $250 million, let's come get it, let's apply for the program. So with that, I'll turn it over to John.
Good afternoon. My name is Jon Gordon. I work for the Department of Education, and I have with me Robert Wilson, who is one of our specialists with the Career and College Transition Division, we will dive into our portion of the application for the Career Technical Education Facilities Program. See if I can figure out. No, let me work on this. There we go. So, as you know, Prop 51 has been around, and of course the Career Technical Education Facilities Program is really the only money that is available here, I believe, under Prop 51. Initially there was $500 million. There is currently $250 million left, and we are doing this all, as Lisa Silverman was saying, under one funding cycle. So for folks who are new to the CTE Facilities Program, because this is the officially sixth cycle, and initially it started back in Prop 51, Prop 1D. What it is, it's a match for match, dollar for dollar, that the state will give school districts for their projects up to $1.5 million on a modernization project and $3 million on a new construction project. The process, in a nutshell, is that typically the Department of Education would receive your application that you're applying for, whether it's facilities or CTE specific equipment. We would score those applications. If you received a score, if the application received a score of 105 and higher, that project is eligible to be considered for funding. After you have a score, then you submit the appropriate documents to the Office of Public School Construction, who will prioritize and finalize what the allocation would look like for that particular project. And then once that project is selected for funding, then you would have to get DSA, Division of State Architect, as well as CDE plan approval. So projects that are eligible is highlighted under Education Code 17078.72. So we are looking for projects that must be located on a comprehensive high school. Again, this has been more or less the same since we've had it since the beginning, since 2008 under Prop 1D, where the location of the site must meet the three education codes that are listed there. JPAs may also be eligible for modernization funding only, and then your equipment must have a 10-year lifespan. So traditionally what we've seen, things like computers, monitors, those types of items, consumables, kits, those typically do not meet a 10-year lifespan and would not be eligible under this particular program. Your application must be one industry sector. In some cases we've seen that you have a project where you have a building and it may have, let's say, an auto shop, a wood shop, so that would be transportation industry sector, building and trades industry sector. You would have to submit actually two separate applications, one per industry sector. Now, within the sector, there are pathways, and you could apply under multiple pathways, but it must be one industry sector. Projects that received funding in the past may or may not be eligible, and I believe the Office of Public School Construction will delineate what that looks like in terms of how much funding you may be eligible for if you'd like to come back to receive additional monies. Newly construction projects that occupied on or after 2006, they're eligible. Same could be for modernization. So what's new for this particular funding cycle? As we mentioned before, there's a whole lot of money than what we've seen before under Prop 51. In the past, it was 125 and 125 that the state had to contribute. This time it will be 250. In addition, you have an option because there was a limit with the 125s. There were a lot of applications that were eligible for funding but did not receive funding. So for those, you have really an option to either reapply, get a higher score, or you can submit directly to OPSC. In some cases where a district is looking to reapply to OPSC and they have what they feel is a high score to get funded, they could come to the Department of Education and receive an adjustment on what the funding, what the ask is in terms of what your financials are to address inflation. We think there's probably just a small handful of those projects, but if it's something that districts are interested in doing, please contact myself or Fred Yeager or Kelsey Lineback, and we could kind of walk you through that process. So what it is that you would keep your same score. Your application and the scope of the project must be identical to that past application, and then we would look to potentially adjust the score up to 10%. There's also been conversation about flow basis. This funding cycle is more compact than what we have experienced before, and even though we've done 5 funding cycles, efficiencies are really hard to come by when you're looking at doing a quantitative review of an application. So what typically what it means for school districts is you will likely get your score letter earlier than April. And we are asking really school districts to work with the Office of Public School Construction and the Department of Education to actually submit your application simultaneously. And Tracy could talk a little bit more about it, but as you're submitting your hard copies for us to review, if you can also get in line and get things up and moving on the OPSC website with that particular project, I think that will help us. We're looking at getting score letters out in different phases as we're looking through that, and we're still internally trying to figure out what that looks like. So it's really, really, really important that when you are filling out your application, especially in that cover sheet, that information, the contact information, is relevant and accurate, because it is likely that we may be contacting people, especially when we're having multiple score letters going out at multiple different times. So Robert's going to talk a little bit more about CTE and then the application itself. Robert?
Good afternoon, Robert Wilson. I'm with the CDE. I'm with the Career and College Transition Division. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy day to participate. I'm going to talk a little bit about CTE and what CTE is, and I'm also going to go over the application and what it looks like and what some of the submission requirements are and some of the other requirements. The reason that we talk about CTE and what CTE is because in the past rounds, we've received some applications that really weren't CTE programs. You may see a program that's like a physics program, for instance, where they may have a robotics program. That's not really a CTE. You may see also a VAPA, and forgive me for using the acronyms, and hopefully you know what some of those are and stuff. But that's not really CTE. That's VAPA and not AME or those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that when you do submit your application, that it is an application for a CTE program. So a real quick definition of what CTE is, and I don't really need to go into real in depth of that, but a program of study essentially, and it can be anywhere as long as 6 years long, and hopefully the goal is that it's going to lead the student into where he's going to either he or she is going to qualify or even receive a certificate or credential that is industry recognized. So basically what you want to do is a test that you can do for yourself is my program a CTE program? Look at the three things. You want to make sure, is your teacher CTE credentialed, properly credentialed, one of the designated subjects or one of the single subject credentials? All right. Look at the CalPADS codes. Everybody's familiar with CalPADS codes. Look at the CalPADS codes that you've assigned to that program. And for the most part, it should be anything with a number of 7,000 or greater. For the most part, there are a few, very few that don't fall into that category. And the last thing is what kind of standards are being taught, what standards are being the student expected to meet for that program. And if you'll follow those three things, then I think you'll be able to tell right away whether it's a CTE program and stuff. Okay. Sorry. I'm low tech. I talked about the standards already, so we'll just spend just a couple seconds on the standards that are expected expectations for the students in the programs that they're in. And the standards were adopted by the state board in January of 2013, and those are being worked on now to be updated more for what is expected now in 2021, 2022, because the ones that were adopted in 2013 by the state board were probably worked on in 2010, 2011, 2013 in there. So we're working on them now. We're going to update those. The primary standards that are should be addressed is the anchor standards, which in all the 15 sectors, these are the expectations for all students. The students should be able to master all of these standards. We call them anchor standards. And then the second part would be the pathway standards. You're going to go from this. You're going to go from the curriculum standards to the anchor standards and to the pathway standards. And every time they take another step in the standards, what you're going to do is you're narrowing the focus. It's going to be more concentrated on what the industry sector is or the pathway. And then we've added a list of what the 15 sectors, 15 industry recognized sectors for the state of California. Some of the other states have a different list, and the list for the at the federal level is a little different too. So if you're not sure if it's one of those sectors, that's the list there. Sorry for the way the slide is put together. I'll take the blame for it. I don't remember if I did it or not. Okay, a little bit about the application, or we're going to go into the application. The application is going to be broken down into 8 parts, and you can see the CTE plan and the public enrollment, or pupil enrollment, feeder school identification, accountability plan, educational specification, budget justification, unique conditions, and the overall feasibility of the plan. The submittal requirements, you're going to have to submit a cover page, and I'm going to go over each one of those in a little more detail in upcoming slides. Table of contents, a project abstract, the 7 parts of the application. Part 8 is an overall feasibility study that's going to be done by the reader of the application. And then there's also going to include some of the, to make it a little easier for you, a little more convenient, we've included some appendices and some forms. And as you can see in the 7 parts, that it's restricted to a narrative of a total of 12 pages. So don't go over the 12 pages. The readers have been instructed to stop at 12 pages. They're going to stop reading at 12. So it's in your best interest not to submit any more than 12 pages. The one note on the appendices and the forms is those do not count towards the 12-page maximum. The cover page, which is Form A, we've created that for you. We'd like you to use that as part of the submission of the application. You're going to include the LEA's name and contact and address, project details, a quick summary of the project details, board approval, so we're going to need to see the date of the board. The project was submitted to the board for review and approval. Any certifications. And then we're going to also need to see a signature from the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. The project abstract, this is an opportunity for you to include a one page, and please limit it to one page because the readers have been instructed to stop reading after one page. But you're going to include the heading and a brief summary of the project, if it's facilities or modernization equipment or whatever it may be. Include some of the goals and objectives, anything that's you feel that's related to improving or enhancing the Cte opportunities for students. What we've found in the past is the readers have been instructed to, they're going to work their way through the application when they're scoring it, and sometimes some of the information that may not be included in one of the parts, and they can refer back to, they've been instructed to refer back to the project abstracts, and sometimes they can find the information that they're looking in that abstract. So it's kind of important to keep it short and making sure that it's a summary, but get as much information as possible as you can in that abstract. The reader should be able to read that abstract and have a pretty good idea of what the application is all about. Part one, and you'll see that each of the parts have subparts, and some of them have 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. This one has I think 4 or 5. The part A is going to be the description of the plan. Okay. First of all, remember that they have to include an industry sector and the pathways. And we've included an appendix for you so that you can lay that out. You don't have to create a form for that, or we've done that for. And remember that also, as John said, that every application, every industry sector has a separate application. So make sure that on the cover page, the abstract, and throughout the application, that the industry sector that is addressed in there, those are consistent, because we've seen sometimes where you'll get mixed up and they don't agree with each other. So, course sequence also included in that appendix, and should be a sequence of courses that are logical. So it would be like an intro to automotive. Automotive 2, and then advanced automotive. Those kinds of things don't bounce around in those. Make sure that they're logical. Make sure that the person is providing the instruction, the instructor is properly CTE, has a proper CTE credential. Remember, one of the 15 industry sectors designated subject credential, or one of the applicable single subject credentials. Includes a little bit about your labor market demands in your region. Okay? We want to make sure that the program that you're proposing is going to apply to your region. A short rationale for the construction project and or if it's equipment only. And then, of course, we would like to see that the project was reviewed and approved by your local advisory committee. Okay. Part B, I'm sorry, access for all students, and in particular now, because some of you may be using or have received funds from, say, Carl Perkins, or the incentive grant, CTE incentive grant, or the K-12 Strong Workforce grants. Any of those funding opportunities. Well, the focus now, the concentration now is on special populations, and the emphasis that you're using these funds for. So when filling out the Prop 51 grant, you can describe any of the activities that you've done to encourage or to support students in the special populations. C, the school's commitment to to CTE in general and to all students, and as well as to the CTE teachers. What kind of things are you doing at your school level, site level, to promote CTE? Okay. D, the historical evaluation of the program and the sustainability. You can talk about, this is an opportunity for you to brag about your program a little bit. We've had a automotive program or a construction program or a AME program for the last 30 years. It's the same teacher. It's always full of students. There's a waiting list. All the students are successful. Most of the students are receiving a certificate. It's a chance and time for you to brag about your program. Okay. If it's a new program, then you also want to talk about the need, because you've looked at your labor market needs, you've listened to your advisory committee, you've listened to your community. What kind of feedback are you getting? What kind of input are you getting from them? This is one of the reasons that we're going to create this proposed new program. E, what kind of support do you get actually from the district, so that at the district level, they're in favor of this program? Because we all know that the CTE people, they're in favor of it. The teachers are, the CTE people at the district level, but we want to make sure that the district administration and the board are in favor of this. So one way that they can show their support is that they've included it in their LCAP. What are some of their goals, what are some of their expectations and stuff, and they've included CTE in their LCAP. Again, another acronym. I hope everybody's comfortable with that. Part 2, you're going to talk about the number of students that you expect to participate in this either new program or a program that you expect to either improve or enhance with these funds. Okay, so identify the total annual number of pupils expected to attend the program. We're going to have 30 students per section. We're going to have 5 sections. It's going to run either a semester or a full year, 180 days. We're going to have a total of, the 200 students or whatever it is. Break that down. Create a little table if you want. Those kinds of things. Make it easier for the reader to understand that, this is what our expectations are. These are how many students that we expect to participate. Okay, and then B, you're going to describe the procedures in place to ensure that that this number that you came up with, okay, how is that going to be met? What are going to be the follow-ups? You're going to do maybe a little surveys. This is a kind of an opportunity for those Perkins people that you can use E1 and E2 data and those kinds of data streams that you use, those resources that you use. You can refer back to those. This is what we've done. We've counted how many males, how many females, how many non-traditional, and those kinds of statistics. Okay. You can use those. Provide as much detail as possible in that. It'll make it easier for the readers, and the readers will understand. And just a quick word on the readers. Everybody understands that the readers are industry sector leads. Most of them, if not all of them, have teaching experience. They're all CDE employees. So if you're, and the reason I say that is because as you hear me using acronyms, you could probably get away with using acronyms and they'll understand. And they'll understand some of the educational E's that we all tend to use and assume that everybody knows. Part 3, the identification of feeder schools and partners. A list of participants that were involved in the development of this plan. Feeder schools, middle schools to high schools. Now some of the grants are allowing funds to be used to support CTE programs as low as the 5th grade. So if you wanted to include some of the feeder schools, even to now your middle schools, if you have a middle school CTE program only, you don't, and it's being fed by an elementary school, you can list that. We have created an appendix form for you to make that a little simpler. We want to know about what kind of groups were put together to talk about this thing. Were students involved? Were parents involved? Were the counselors involved? Those kinds of people. Were outside people involved? People from the community, people from the business and industry, people from other districts possibly. Any of those kinds of things, include that as much information as possible. ROCPs, Regional Occupation Centers and Programs and stuff, again, another acronym. If they're involved, include them. Industry partners, post-secondary schools, any of the community colleges in the area or state colleges or whatever. And then any of, if you have even proprietary schools that are involved, other post-secondary schools, and include the information that they provided. Part 4 is the accountability plan. You want to describe the accountability plan for CTE enrollments and outcomes. Again, the CTE, definition of CTE, a program of study can be 6 years, can be 8 years, can be 2 years, 4 years, or whatever it is. But the goal is that a student is going to receive, at the end of the program, the student is going to receive an industry-recognized certificate or credential of some sort. So talk about that. Talk about the related employment. If we have a program, a building and construction trade program, and all the students are leaving there and going into entry-level positions in one of the construction companies in the area, you have a big, strong construction company in the area, then you want another opportunity to brag about your programs. Our students are not only going through this, but after they complete this, they're actually enjoying or realizing gainful employment. Post-secondary education. How many of the students are going on to college? How many of the students are going on to college and following along in the same industry sector or pathway that they were doing? They're taking courses that are related to what they took in high school. Those kinds of things. Try to collect as much of that information as possible. And we understand that that's difficult, but I mean, you can just mention that we're doing surveys, we're doing phone calls, we're sending out mass emails, those kinds of things. We're encouraging students to come back to school night or career days or any of those kinds of things. So mention those activities. And then data collection, anything that and we're not asking you to create outside resources or anything. Anything that your student information system could generate, that's the kind of data that we're looking for. Okay. And B of the accountability plan, describe how the school will meet or exceed the obligations pursuant to Ed Code Section 51228B. Essentially, the Ed Code says that if you provide students of the grades 9 through 12, then it's one of your obligations is to provide some career opportunities that the students have to be exposed to or have an opportunity to participate in programs that offer those kinds of things and stuff. So that's the baseline of or the floor of compliance, if you will. But we would kind of like to see maybe a best practice. What are you doing a little differently than everybody else does? Well, not only because it's an Ed Code requirement, but because you're all in basically on this on the CTE plans or CTE programs. And those are the kind of things that the readers are going to be looking for. And I'm going to turn it over to John again.
So part 5, which is a facilities piece of this, if you have not applied before, this is your first time, essentially you're going to have 2 sets of readers that are looking at the application and scoring. And actually it's going to be 4 because the facilities piece are going to be 2 people that have experience in facilities planning. So I had an opportunity to actually talk to some of the readers on this particular piece because this is something that within my office that we are working on, and I work explicitly with the readers, Kelsey and I. And so I can give you a couple of feedback things that they talked about. So the first 3 parts. So some of the things that the readers have not really seen is can an applicant really describe what your project is in a very concise, simplified manner? They seem to have some some challenges with that in terms of reading and understanding this is what I am trying to do with this project. So think about this very brief statement about what your project looks like. Spaces, buildings, place on the school site, those all matter. How many teaching stations or how many learning spaces are going to be impacted. So try to be very concise, because the folks that are reading this Part 5 are not necessarily reviewing the rest of the application, but there are times where they have to hunt for some of this stuff to get a better context of what you're looking to do. Regarding the plans, we want a site plan and a floor plan. Size does not matter. What matters to the readers is their ability to read it. If you have an 8x10 and it's legible and it's very clear, and you don't need a telescope to read it, perfect. If you want to give a full sheet, that's fine too. In some cases, maybe your project, let's say for instance, is consisting of a theater, and you're having stagecraft as part of that component of that particular education program. If there are delivery trucks, they would like to see, if you could mark on your site plan, where that delivery route would be. That would be helpful for them. So those 3 points, they should be very easy to obtain, those 6 points. If you do not submit a site plan, you will not get the 2 points. So please, site plan, floor plan of the spaces that you're looking at, as well as in some cases you may have a very large building and maybe a half of it, a third of it, a part of it is part of CTE. If you can outline it to help the reader understand this is what we're looking at, that would also be helpful. Space requirements. So the space requirements, we really want to understand, how did you arrive at 3 teaching stations? How did you arrive maybe at a shop at 6,000 square feet as opposed to 3,000 square feet? Some of the other feedback I got from the readers about space is, so what's a space look like when it's actually being used? And they've seen things that are written from lots of different extremes. One extreme is, here's a teaching station, I have 5 periods and I have 30 students per class. And they've also seen it from the other extreme of, I have 30 students and I have these 4 tables, and at these 4 tables there's going to be 7 students or 8 students or 4 students, whatever it is. And then I also have, this piece of equipment over here, I can have 2 at a time. The more descriptive so that they understand how you arrived at the space is always better. We really want to understand that there was a very thoughtful planning process behind this, that the applicant had industry sector, your partners at the table, because really the intent of this program is that we want facilities, classrooms, equipment to represent or be aligned with what is industry standard. So to what degree you've had a thoughtful dialogue to arrive at the space and what that looks like and how you're able to articulate that is important, as well as the program space and justification. Are you maximizing your space? Are you drawn within this part F? Are you drawing a connection to, this is why I need 3 classrooms because I have 18 different classes, 18 different sections, as opposed to I need 5 classrooms and throughout my coursework I really only have 5 periods. You really don't need 5 classrooms. So drawing the correlation between your coursework and the space to see where you arrived at. The other thing that some of my readers mentioned is that because we have I think 2 or 3 different readers, they notice some trends of cutting and pasting, and they frown upon that. In some cases, you may have, let's say, a building in which has different industry sectors and there's different applications, and it's the same process, and you're cutting and pasting. We understand that. It's when you're submitting 5 applications, and one is for ag, and one is for arts, media, entertainment, and there is no connection. Maybe there's a connection when you're doing your facilities master plan, but some of these other pieces, there is no connection, and the language is identical. They do know, and they are aware. So think about tailoring each application specifically for that particular industry sector. Robert.
Thank you, John. Part 6, the budget justification detail sheet, and we've also provided a form for you on that. Subpart A is provide the estimated capital cost per pupil and the rationale, the method that you use for that. Basically, what we would like to see there is take all the costs that are involved in this project. Tell us about the number of students that you propose that are going to participate in this project. If it's 30 students for 5 sections, it's 150 students for 180 days. They're going to be in there. Divide that up and come up with a cost per student. You can see that there might be a case where the project is only going to be used either part-time or temporarily, and there's only maybe going to be 10 students that are going to use it for one section for 180 days. You can see that there's the capital cost is going to be a lot higher for that project. So we'd kind of see what that's going to look like and the rationale that you use to justify that cost. B is describe the financial participation of your industry partners. Of course, we definitely want to see that you involved your advisory committee in this decision and what recommendations they made. And so that can be the participation that they provided. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be in kind that they spent their time, they made these recommendations, they came down and looked at the site. Maybe they looked at other ones. And this is also an opportunity to even get letters of support, letters of recommendation from your industry partners. And then we also want to see industry collaboration with the equipment needs. So you're talking about a building construction program or an automotive program. Did you consult with your industry professionals on what's the latest equipment that we should buy? What is expected in the industry? And the idea behind that is the student completes your program and goes out into the workforce, and he's going to see similar equipment. It's going to make sense to him. Okay. What is your the best value validation that you use? And this is probably something that's done at your district level before anything is purchased. You're required to, over a dollar amount, you're expected to get 3 quotes. You're looking at things like warranties or life expectancies, any of those, trade-in values, anything. So that's more of a something that's probably a board recognized or board approved policy that your district has and stuff. Lay that out for us and let us know what it is, and provide as many details on that as possible too. And then the E is going to be the maintenance and the upkeep and the commitment for that, because we don't want you to buy a machine or buy equipment and then who's now responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep and making sure that it's going to last. Is it going to be the teacher? Is it going to be a district? You can talk about the financial commitment that the district makes to the maintenance of all equipment or all machines or all buildings, on district property, those kinds of things. And then, that's also something that you can reference back to your LCAP and stuff, what funds are committed to maintenance and upkeep. There's a quick view of the form that we're going to expect you to use, or that has been provided for you to use. Part 7 is unique conditions, describing unique conditions that may affect the application. Some of the school districts are located in rural or isolated schools, so they're going to have issues that are going to cause, construction costs to be higher, even, delivery of equipment and machines and those kinds of things, that those costs can be affected. So you want to talk about those things. Any unique partnership agreements that you may have, talk about those. Any unique costs and expense issues that you feel that you're either benefit from or they're a cost to you, an additional cost to you. And then the uniqueness or the physical plant. It's on a hill and it's hard to get to, and during the winter the roads are wet and those kinds of things. So it's just describe any of that kind of stuff. And then part 8 is the overall feasibility of the project. Again, this is not something that you're responsible for submitting. This is something that the reader is going to look over. The reader, based on their subject matter expertise, reading throughout the whole application, they're going to piece it all together and they're going to come up with an opinion, essentially. And they're going to judge whether the project is realistic or is it even capable of being done. They're going to consider the entire application, and they're going to look at the cohesiveness and the viability of the application. So based on their experience, they're going to assign as much as 6 points. And this is also an area where I feel that it's kind of an easy 6 points, really, if you just include some of the issues that you have faced. Helpful hints. These are hints and suggestions that we've gotten from prior applicants that have been successful. You want to make sure that you provide clear, concise, and complete answers. Okay, so don't make the reader fish around to try to find out, well, what are they answering here? What part are they answering? What subpart of the question are they answering? So, okay. Answer the questions in the order that they're asked. All the parts have subparts. The subparts are alphabetical, so answer them in that order. Okay. Restate the question if it's not clear to the reader what they're reading and what you've written. Then you want to, maybe a good way to make sure that is clear is to restate the question. And then make sure on your equipment request, they've always made sure that the equipment has at least a 10-year lifespan. We get a lot of that where people are saying, submitting things for the extreme case, but I mean, say a screwdriver. Well, a screwdriver, is that going to last 10 years? Well, probably so. If I lay it on the table, I come back 10 years, it's still going to work. Right? But we want to make sure that the equipment that you're requesting is going to have at least a 10-year lifespan. And then, of course, one of the things that successful applicants have done, and what we would expect to see, is provide all the required information. And as something as simple as the table of contents, the signatures, any of those project abstract, any of those kinds of things. Okay, and back to John.
So after you submit this and CDE scores it and you receive a score letter, you may not be happy. You do have an option to appeal. So this is going to be really tricky because, again, we talked about what the flow basis may look like, and that have different phases. So it's your score letter and your appeal process, the time that you can appeal, the window, is going to be tied to that score letter. So it's really important that CDE does a very effective job with making sure that districts get their score letters in hand. We will be mailing it to the superintendent, and we are exploring other ways to get out information to have people aware of when they might be getting their score letter. That's one of our challenges. You can only appeal based on the process. And as you can see, there's no new information. I said we will be working on trying to figure out a way, because there will be multiple windows to appeal. We'd like you to submit 5 hard copies, the original, and then 4 copies. So we're asking for 1 more copy than what you may have seen in past cycles. That's really due because we're trying in this compressed funding cycle trying to get more readers to have eyes on it sooner the better. Also submit a USB flash drive. You can send it to my attention. You can send it to Kelsey Lineback's attention. You can send it to Fred Yeager's attention. My feelings won't be hurt. But if you send it in my attention, that'd be nice. December 2nd, we need it in hand. So please do not put it in the mail on December 2nd because we will not be scoring it. And I have seen this happen. This is going to be a very competitive funding cycle, as the other two have, especially with this being the end of the money. We project a lot of folks that will be reapplying. And so please make sure if you have to drop it off, we will have a place for you at the Department of Education to drop it off personally. So please make sure you follow that. There's a couple other things I wanted to address, and then I could open it up to questions, is that, the Department of Education as well as the state is well aware that there have been a lot of fires lately. And we've experienced this, I think, in cycle 4, where some districts have been affected and there's been school closures. As a result, if your district has been affected by the fire, please contact Fred Yeager or myself directly. We can make accommodations. In power. We can make accommodations to extend the timeline based upon reviewing your particular unique situation. I also wanted to let you know that within the Department of Ed's on their website, we also have a webinar that has very similar information if you would like to review that. Also, because as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of districts that are reapplying. Some of the questions that I have received we're reapplying. I have letters of support. I have 20 of them. Now, do I have to go back because they're dated 2017? Do I have to go back and seek support, renewal support? Or do I have to go back and get a new board resolution? And the answer is no. The Department of Education recognizes how difficult and how time-consuming it is to get to ascertain these letters of recommendation. You will not be required, and we'll be working with the readers to inform them not to get applications get dinged because the letters are a little bit older. We understand, based with this particular Prop 51 CTE Facilities Program, that we've had so many reapplies, provided that your project has to be the same. So you can't make significant changes and think that the letter or the board resolution still works. It has to be consistent with what you are reapplying for. And then I also wanted to clarify on my comment earlier about the 10%, because I might have misspoke. If you are reapplying and you decide that you think your score will likely get funded, you can come to us and we can look at your budget and adjust it up to 10%, just your budget, not your score. So hopefully that's clarified. I talked about some of the reapplies. Are there any questions that folks may have before I turn it over? Yes.
Hi, John. Travis Kirk, Cte Construction Management. One of our clients is a district in the South Bay looking at putting in a small CDE high school. Early on in the presentation, someone mentioned that it would be on a comprehensive site.
Mm-hmm.
Is there an exception for that situation? They have a really high student body population at their comprehensive high school, so their mechanism to mitigate that is maybe a 5-year
So the question was if a district would like to have, I'm going to paraphrase, maybe a satellite site that maybe provides multiple sectors where different high schools can access this, and it's not necessarily located on a comprehensive high school site, is that allowable? Unfortunately, based on the education code, it has to be located on a comprehensive high school, and that's the rule that we've been following since Prop 1D. I am hopeful that, I don't know to what degree there is any flexibility with AB 48 being approved, to think that, because obviously when this legislation was approved back in, what, '06, so much has changed in CTE, and districts are looking at ways of being more efficient. Currently with this particular funding cycle, that it has to be located on a comprehensive high school. Other questions? Well, with that, I will turn it over to the Office of Public School Construction. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Haley Jensen. I'm going to be introducing the Office of Public School Construction's presentation today about the Career Technical Education Facilities Program. I do want to thank CDE for their informative presentation. We enjoy collaborating with them. So what we're going to be focusing on today is the OPSC online tool and how districts and other stakeholders can submit their funding applications fully online. Before we get into it, I did want to allow my team to go ahead and introduce themselves. As I stated before, my name is Haley.
And I'm Jonathan. I'm Justin.
And thank you for joining us. I'm Tracy Sharp, the OPSC team supervisor.
Awesome. So we are just part of the CTEFP team here at OPSC. There's a couple of staff members that are part of our team that are not presenting today. If you ever need to reach our team, the best place to reach us would be at the OPSC CTEFP inbox. The email address for that inbox is located at the bottom of the screen at the bullet there. Since all of our team has access to that email inbox, it is the most convenient place for you to reach someone if you have questions about the CTEFP program. So our agenda for today's presentation, the first thing we'll be discussing is how to access OPSC online, which, as I stated before, is a tool that OPSC offers that allows districts to submit their funding applications fully online. A few of you may have used this tool before to submit your applications. However, the website has recently been updated with a couple of new updates that we're really excited about. The first of which is e-signature functionality. And what this means is that districts can submit now their applications fully online, including the signature, which means that they do not have to submit paper copies with original wet signatures. We can accept the application fully online. Another feature that we've recently updated is the ability to upload documents. And again, the goal of these features is to streamline the application process and make it easier for districts to submit their applications. The required documents that you are asked to submit with your Form SAB 5010 can now all be uploaded online as well, meaning that you do not have to send in hard copies of those documents either. After we talk about how to access OPSC online, we will be moving into a live demonstration of the website and its functionality. Justin will be showing you how to fill out and submit a CTEFP application, so you'll get to see what that process looks like. Jonathan will be talking about how to upload the required documents to your application, and he will also talk to you guys about how to add delegate users, because we do have a couple of different kinds of user accounts for OPSC Online, and those accounts do have different permission levels, so we'll explain what those are. We will do an overview of the required documents that we ask you to submit with your Form 5010. We will do some frequently asked questions about the online submittal process, and then we will take any questions from the audience. If you are watching via webcast, we do encourage you to submit questions via email to our CTEFP inbox. Our supervisor, Tracy, will be answering those questions in real time via email. And if you have questions that remain after the presentation, this is always a good place to reach us. As a reminder, we do encourage all of our viewers to follow along with the presentation using the user guide that we provided. We are structuring the user guide and the presentation to follow kind of the same format so that it'll be easy to follow along with what step we're at in the process. So there are two different ways to access OPSC Online from the OPSC website, and I'll go through each of those different methods. At the top of the screen is a direct link to OPSC Online. I know it's kind of long. Definitely feel free to take a picture if you'd like. I will show how to get to that website from our OPSC website as well. So first, we're going to talk about how to get there from the Resources tab. From the OPSC website, which is dgs.ca.gov/OPSC, you would click the Resources tab, and then the link titled Online Application Tools for School Construction Projects, and then the first bullet, which is titled OPSC Online Application Submittal. So as you can see here, this is our OPSC website. This is the home page. The arrow there is pointing to the Resources tab. You would click the Resources tab. And then the first link, which is titled Online Application Tools for School Construction Projects, pretty self-explanatory. And once you get to that page, you would click the first bullet, which is titled OPSC Online Application Submittal, and that would take you to OPSC Online. The second way to access OPSC Online would be through the Services tab. The Services tab, we do have a page that is specifically geared towards the Career Technical Education Facilities program, and you can find a link to OPSC Online there, as well as lots of other resources, including the user guide that we provided a physical copy of for you today, and lots of other resources. So again, from the OPSC website, the main page, you would click on the Services tab, and then the link titled Access Career Technical Education Facilities Funding, which would take you to our CTE page with all those resources I was mentioning. And then the first link, which is titled 5010 Online Submittal, again, pretty self-explanatory. So here is the view of our home screen, the arrow pointing towards the Services tab. Once you get there, you would click on the link titled Access Career Technical Education Facilities Funding. And then this is the page where all of those resources are. The first bullet on the page is for 5010 Online Submittal, and clicking that link would take you to OPSC Online. At this time, we're going to go ahead and transition over to our live demonstration, and I am going to let Justin jump in and explain. If I can figure out how to pull the internet up. Give me 1 sec, guys. Okay, there we go.
All right. Thank you, Haley, for that introduction and overview. Again, my name is Justin, and I'll be doing a live demonstration on how to fill out and submit a CTE application using the OPSC online system. I know Haley mentioned what it is, but I just want to reiterate that the OPSC online system is a program that allows users to fill out, submit, and manage applications for funding to OPSC. By submitting an online application, we won't require hard copies of those applications. Instead, we have an e-signature function, which will allow district representatives and superintendents to certify to their application, and we'll use the submittal date for that application as the OPSC receive date. Before I jump into the filling out of the application, there are a few things I want to mention. First is that the handout provided is the OPSC online user guide. This is pretty much a step-by-step guide on how to fill out an application. The example used in the guide is a little different from the example I'll be doing today, but the process is more or less the same. The second thing I want to mention is that we will be filling out an application for Gridley Unified School District, but this is in a test environment which looks identical to the OPSC online system in live production, but it actually won't have an effect on the district, and it's as if the application never existed. The third thing I want to mention is that we are actively working to enhance OPSC Online, and there are a couple of known issues in the application, but as we come across those, I'll point them out to you. So on page 2 of the online guide, you'll see that there is a direct link to access OPSC Online, as well as an email address for any OPSC Online related questions or issues. If you're a superintendent or a district representative on file with OPSC and you do not yet have an account, you can go ahead and send a message to that email address, and we'll have someone work with you on setting up that account. The last thing I want to mention is that there are different types of applications on OPSC Online. There are district representatives and superintendents that have access to fill out and submit applications, but they also have the ability to add delegates to fill out applications on behalf of the district. Delegates can't submit apps, but what they can do is fill out an application and have a superintendent or a district representative log in and submit the application that they filled out. So I'm going to log in here as a delegate using the email address on file. And we are now on page 3 of the user guide. The first thing I see when I log in is the dashboard. Here, if you are a district representative or superintendent, you'll see all the applications for your district. If you're a delegate, you'll see all the applications for any of the districts that you were given access to. Here are the applications for sorry, I'm on the wrong account. Let me log out and log into the correct one. So I'm logged in as a delegate, and I can see all the applications for Gridley Unified. For each application, you can see certain information about it, such as the application name, the program type, the status of the application number, the site it's located at, the district, the project tracking number, the OPSC receive dates, and the date that the application was last updated. So I'll go ahead and create an application, and we are now on page 4 of the user guide. The first thing we're being asked for is if the district applied for advanced funding for site acquisition or design for this project before. For CTE projects, we don't have that option, so we would go ahead and select no, and then we would see this text here. That's just giving us additional information that will help us fill out the rest of the page. The next thing we're being asked for is for the district. That would be Gridley Unified. And then next would be the funding program type. If you notice here, there's a question mark next to that instruction. If you click it, it'll give you additional information on what's being asked for here, as well as a hyperlink that will open the SFP regulations. You would be able to navigate to section 1859.192 to get more information of what's being asked for in that instruction. So for the program types, we have the CTE new construction and CTE mod application. Keep in mind the differences between the two, such as the maximum grant amounts, as well as what makes you eligible for new construction versus mod. I'm going to go ahead and select new construction. However, the process for filling out the application is pretty much the same. And then if your district or high school has established with high school attendance areas, they would populate here. For Gridley Unified, I'm going to go ahead and select district-wide. And then we're asked for a project tracking number, which is required before filling out this application. So I'll go ahead and put a PTN of 12. And then the last thing on this page is an application nickname. You can go ahead and enter anything you want. However, we recommend to give it a nickname that's easily identifiable, just because many people will be going in and out of this application. So I'll go ahead and name this Gridley High for an auto shop. Then we'll go ahead and press continue. And we are now on page 10 of the online user guide. So here's the information page. There is some incorrect information on this page. It says that after submitting your online application, you need to submit a hard copy within 7 days. That is actually incorrect. We've updated the user guide to reflect that you don't need to submit a hard copy after you submit an application, and we will have this message fixed within the next week or so. So I'm going to go ahead and start the application. And we are now on page 11 of the user guide. So one thing I want to show you guys here is that you can actually navigate back to the dashboard with the breadcrumb links. So if I go back to the dashboard, I can see that this application has been created. And its status is a draft just because we haven't yet submitted it. But if I want, I can click it and go back into it, and I'll be taken into the application dashboard. Here you can see some information about the application, such as the submitted versions, the drafts, if the application is associated with another project, as well as the upload file button. One thing I want to stress here is that district superintendents, district representatives, and all delegates can upload files here just by clicking this upload file button. So let's say I wanted to submit a cost estimate. I could just click browse files, look for that cost estimate, give it a description as well as a file type. And then upload the file. And afterwards, we can see that this has been successfully uploaded and that the cost estimate is now attached to the project. So we can go back into the application just by clicking on it. And notice here that in the navigation pane, there are these sections of the application with an orange exclamation point if the section has not been completely filled out. You won't be able to submit the application if there are any of these orange exclamation points. So I'll go back into the application details. The first thing that we're asked for here is the locale of the project. I'll go ahead and select urban. And if you have a DSA number associated with the project, go ahead and enter that in here. I'll go ahead and enter a random number. If you don't have a DSA number yet, you can go ahead and leave this part blank. Whenever you complete a section, make sure to click continue. It is known that if you don't click continue, sometimes the page won't save, so just make sure you hit continue. So now we are on page 13 of the user guide. We are being asked for the industry sector here. I'll go ahead and select the transportation industry sector, as well as any pathways that this is associated with. I can click two pathways, so I'll go ahead and do operations as well as system diagnostics. And then I'll click continue, and we are on page 15 of the user guide. Notice that since these sections have been completely filled out, we don't see the orange exclamation mark anymore. We see a green check mark. Next, we're being asked if the project is part of a qualifying SFP project. If it is, you would click yes, and then a list of projects would populate here. You can just select the project that this project is associated with. For Gridley Unified, there are no other projects, so we'll go ahead and select no. And then it asks for the high school or site where the project will be located. I'll go ahead and select Gridley High, and it's asking if we're requesting project assistance, which is if the district has 2,500 or fewer pupils. I'm going to go ahead and select yes for that. We are now on page 20 of the user guide, and we're asked for the score from CDE on the CTE score letter. If I enter a number in here, it's prompting me to enter a value with 2 decimal places, so I can go ahead and enter the 2 decimal places. However, there is another issue here. If you put 0.00, the application actually can't submit. We do intend on having that fixed within the next week or so, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and put 0.01. And the number of classrooms for the CTE application. I'm going to put 4. If it is an equipment-only project, you would put 0. Again, there's another issue here where if you put 0, the application actually won't submit. Haley will go over what to do if that circumstance applies to you, but I'm going to put 4 for this project and 6,000 square feet for the CTE facility square footage. I'll go ahead and click continue, and we are now on page 22. So now we're being asked for if the district is requesting a reservation of funds. If the district is requesting reservation of funds, you can click yes. Again, this gives the applicant an additional 12 months to gather their CDE or DSA plan approvals if they do not yet have them. If you do have your DSA and CDE plan approvals, go ahead and click no. And then you can just attach those plan approvals, just like I did with the cost estimate. So I'll go ahead and click continue, and we are now on page 30 of the user guide. Here, we're just being asked for the project costs for the project. Something important to note here is that on the 5010, we requested the 50% amounts for the project costs. Here, we're asking for 100% amounts, and on the right, it'll automatically generate the 50% amounts. I'm going to go ahead and enter construction costs of $5 million. Equipment costs of $700,000, and site development costs of $300,000. Notice here that we see some red text and an error saying that we've exceeded the maximum grant amount. Keep in mind that for CTE new construction projects, the maximum grant amount is $3 million. Here we exceeded that because even though our costs are $6 million, we do have project assistance, which puts us over that $6 million amount. Therefore, we are exceeding the $3 million amount for the state grant. So even though our site development costs may be $300,000 in reality, I'm going to go ahead and enter an amount that is less than that because we can't exceed that $3 million amount. So this puts us at $6 million total project costs exactly with a state grant of $3 million, which is the maximum. Then I'll go ahead and click continue when I'm done with that. And we are now on page 33 of the user guide. And we're being asked if the district is requesting a loan. So unlike SFP, CTE doesn't have a financial hardship option where we'll cover the district's matching share. Instead, we offer a 10-year loan, and if the district wants to request that, you would just select yes. So here we're being asked for what amount we're requesting a loan for. I'm going to go ahead and request a loan for the maximum amount of $3 million. And then we're asked for if the district has current financial hardship approval. I'm going to select no, assuming we don't have financial hardship yet. And then we're asked for an as-of date that reflects the funds noted in the funds worksheet, which is a required document for requesting a loan. Please note that if you don't have financial hardship approval, then this date must be within 30 days of application submittal. So I'll put in a date that's within 30 days of today, since we're going to submit the application today, and then I'll click continue. And now we are at the certification section, which is on page 36 of the online user guide. Here you can see some terms and conditions regarding application submittal. Below that, you'll see some boxes we need to fill out regarding the resolution supporting this application submittal, as well as the LEA representative or superintendent's phone number and the LEA representative or superintendent's name. These text boxes are grayed out for me because I am a delegate. I don't have access to entering in information here. In fact, when I try to move past it and submit the application, it won't let me because I have that orange exclamation part by the certification section that I cannot fill out. So what I would do here as a delegate is log out, let the district representative or superintendent know that you have completely filled out the application, and what they can do is log in, review that you've entered in all the information accurately, and then submit the application. Jonathan does have a superintendent account for this district, so I'll let him demonstrate what that process would look like.
Thank you, Justin. All right, at this point, Justin's already done all the heavy lifting for me, so I'm going to log in using my superintendent account. Bear with me. Okay, so I've now successfully logged in as the superintendent. As we've mentioned a few times already, the delegate does have the permission sufficient to go into the system and to complete and fill out the form, but cannot submit the form itself. But so I'm logging now as the superintendent, so I'm going to take you through that process of how that would look. So first of all, I'm going to find the draft status of the Gridley High Auto Shop CTE application that needs to be submitted. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And it's going to bring me back to this same page. that you've seen before, which is sort of the overview of the application itself. And from here, you can see there are no submitted versions yet because this draft has not yet been submitted by me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the draft itself, open it up, and this is going to give me an opportunity now to review the application for completeness and accuracy. As I scroll down, you'll see some of the familiar navigation tools that we have on the left-hand side. You can actually navigate and click on each of these sections, and it will take you directly to that section to review it. But you can also, you'll notice that I landed on the review page. And this gives me the opportunity as a superintendent or an authorized district representative to review the entire application in its fullness. And I'm seeing everything looks good. We have our industry sector, we've got our pathways here, we've got our affiliations, scores in classrooms, everything's looking good. If you did need to edit the page, and that's something that Justin had mentioned earlier, you can click in here, the Edit Page button, in any one of these sections, and you can make changes. However, be mindful that you'll have to click the Continue button in order to effect it to save the data that you've just entered. Otherwise, there's a possibility it may not get saved. Regardless, I'm still just reviewing the application. I'm looking to see that everything's been completed correctly. I can edit any one of these pages where I have the opportunity with this button down below that says Edit Page. Everything looks fine. So at this point, I've reached now the certification. Maybe I went a bit too far. And at this point, I can actually scroll through the terms and conditions that Justin mentioned earlier, and I can just make sure that everything looks good, and then I'm going to certify to them. I've read them. Hang on. Yes, I'm going the wrong direction. Hold on. Aha. Now I have the opportunity to continue. Wait, they won't let me. Edit page. Okay, now I'm in the certification section. So again, as Justin mentioned before, we have these certifications, these terms and conditions that have to be certified to by an authorized district representative or the superintendent. And when you do that by clicking this box here that I'm verifying, I've read and I agree to all these terms and conditions. I'm going to have to enter a date here. I'm being prompted to put in the date on which a resolution or other appropriate documentation supporting this application. So I'll just give it a date in the past. Let's just say right here. That works. It's going to prompt you for your phone number and a name. In effect, what I'm doing is I'm signing the document. And I'm confirming this is all correct. I hit continue. Here we go. And now we come to the last page, which is a submit box page. You'll notice that these are not grayed out for me. As I am the superintendent, I've logged in with my appropriate permission levels. I can now go ahead and just click the boxes here where it says I've uploaded all the required documents. Well, maybe I haven't. Perhaps this is another opportunity here where I can upload a document that if I haven't completed all the required documents, which we'll cover in a moment, I have a chance to do that now. So for example, I'm going to go ahead at this point and add a Dsa Approval Letter. So we'll go ahead and just browse, and I'm selecting this, and you'll see it down below here. I now have a chance and an opportunity to give it a description. Now, and a question that we get sometimes is, well, we'll get to this first. Let's give it a description. This is going to be my DSA letter. And I have an opportunity to give it a file type. We'll go with a Dsa Approval Letter right here. So I'm reviewing this now. I'm going to go ahead and upload this. A word of caution. Once you've uploaded a document, you will not have the ability to delete it or to bring it back down. So the way we can get around that is you can always add a superseding document. So for example, if I've uploaded the wrong DSA plan approval letter, I do have the opportunity to go back and upload another document, the proper DSA approval letter, and give it a name, a description. I would probably put something like superseding DSA letter so that it's clear to all the users who have access to this application, it's clear that this is the superseding letter. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and say, we have it all here, the Gridley USD, yeah, we're good. We're going to go ahead and hit done. And we'll wait. At this point now, I'm going to go ahead and check the boxes. I've uploaded everything I can think to do, and I'm now certifying as the representative or the superintendent that everything here is accurate and true. All my required documents are uploaded. I now have the ability to submit the paperless application, and this is indeed the e-signature. All right, and you'll get a confirmation, the paperless application was successfully submitted. You might even be able to go back and take a look. And you can see now, what we saw previously was a draft version of the application is now in submitted status, and it's in the submitted versions right here. So now we're successful. All right. So switching gears a bit, we had mentioned earlier that superintendents and authorized district representatives have the ability to add delegate accounts to the district's profile. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that now because I am still logged in as a superintendent, so I have the permissions necessary to do this. I'm going to direct your attention to the top right corner up here. There's a little icon, Users. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And at this point, you can see that I'm able to view all of the authorized users for my district account right down below. This is the user management landing page. From here, I can go ahead and create a user by clicking this button here on the left-hand side. Just create user. At this point, I'm going to be prompted to create the profile of the user. So we'll go ahead and just follow the prompts. We'll give it an email address that, let's just do this. All right. Fictitious name. I've been prompted to put in an office phone number, which I believe is required. And there we have it. At this point, I'm going to hit save and continue. So I've created the user at this point. Now I'm being prompted to add the user access. This is where I'm able to assign the permission level. So I'll do that by clicking the Add Access button right here on the bottom right, if you follow my mouse. Add access. Well, the district's going to be, as we mentioned earlier, we're using Gridley Unified as our district today. I'm going to assign the role. This is the permission level. You'll see that I can add an LEA delegate or consultant account right here. You can add a company as well. And this is an important thing as well. You can also add, as a superintendent or authorized district representative, you can add an expiration date for the new delegate user for how long they can use the account. So, for example, here I'm prompted to use a calendar. I'll go ahead and flip it to, say, December 6th. And then I'm going to want to save it. All right, at this point I see a little success, user access saved in the bottom right corner. I see it here. This is my user is good. I'm going to go ahead and click done. And you see Mr. Nathan Stanley has been added below. Here we are. And what's going to happen now, I'm going to click this confirm button in the bottom left corner. This is the profile where you can manage the profile, and you actually have some opportunities to edit your profile, change password, I believe. You can also change your username. But I'm going to go ahead and confirm the account at this point. And you'll see this. It's giving me a quick, whoa, hey, this will confirm the user. You sure you want to proceed? Yes, I do. Now we've had success. All right. Are there any questions at this point about anything you've seen thus far?
On the application, when Justin was speaking earlier, you exceeded a $3 million threshold. Example that may occur in our district we represent would be a large performing arts center is going to be more maybe pathway that has to do with production. So the overall structure maybe is $20 million range. Get around that if you just need that portion to support the program within that.
So the question is, if the project is more than the $6 million amount, so let's say 20 million, how would you get around the 6 million cap or the 3 million for the state grant? Unfortunately, the 3 million grant is what we have to stick to. However, if that campus or the CT facility is housing multiple sectors or pathways, you can have an additional application for the other sector.
Could you just say a portion of the building is housing the CDE program? Say that's all they had was that one program that maybe housed the art center. To say that theater production, but only a portion of the building is being used for that, and that portion is valued at $3 million.
As in, you would want to use the rest of that for a different project, like for SFP, for example?
Yeah, so they have a local bond measure, it's shy of $300 million, it's actually to build a center, but certainly would be nice to offset some of those expenses.
You can just indicate the part of the project that you are requesting funds for. What's that? Any other questions up to this point?
Okay, we're going to transition back into the PowerPoint. Okay.
So one thing that I did not mention before is that once you have created the user account as a superintendent or an authorized district representative, and you click that confirm button that I showed you in the bottom left corner, it's going to generate an email to the new delegate user. And it's going to look something like this. And it's basically asking the new delegate user to confirm their user access. And they have 24 hours to do it. So they must be, the new user needs to click that button within 24 hours, otherwise the district representative or the superintendent will have to go back and try to add the account again one more time. We had mentioned earlier that there are certain required documents that must be submitted with the online application. On the left-hand side, you will see a listing of those required documents for non-reservation of funds projects, or what I call construction ready. And these, again, are all uploadable using the electronic system, the OPSC Online. For full funding, you're going to be submitting a CDE score letter, as well as a copy of the actual CDE grant application itself. We're going to need to see a detailed construction cost estimate, including site development costs if they're being requested. Also an itemized list of equipment, and then also the CDE plan approval letter and DSA plan approval letter. Now for reservation of funds projects that haven't obtained those plan approval letters, on the right-hand side you'll see what is required to be submitted with your online application. For reservation of funds projects, the same as you see on the left, the CDE score letter is required. The CDE grant application is also required. The same detailed construction cost estimate, including site development costs if they're being requested. And lastly, the itemized cost listing of equipment, including the costs associated. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin and Jonathan. I hope that live demonstration kind of showed you how simple it can be to walk through the online application and how to upload documents, how to add users. Our goal with OPSC Online is to make it work as best as possible for our stakeholders, streamline our application process, and avoid having to submit paper copies of things that you can just submit online. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and run through a couple of frequently asked questions. After we get through the FAQs, we will have time to take any remaining questions from the audience. So the first question here, and this is something that both Justin and Jonathan covered, what are the different types of user accounts for OPSC Online? As you can see, we do have LEA Superintendent as well as LEA Representative, which is a certified district rep. You can also add delegate accounts for LEA architects or LEA district staff, consultants, and those accounts have different permission levels. As Jonathan and Justin demonstrated, since Justin was a delegate account, he only had the ability to fill out the application and save it as a draft. He can upload documents. Only the superintendent and LEA certified district representative may actually certify to the application and submit it. But other than that, the consultant or delegate accounts can go in, fill out the application, and upload documents. If you need to add a new district representative, someone that has not previously been listed in OPSC's records, you still have to do that by submitting a paper copy of the Form SAB 5003 with original wet signature to OPSC. However, that form, you only need to fill out Part 1, which is the top section of the form, asking for the district rep's contact information and providing that certification information at the bottom of the page. If you need to change your superintendent's contact information, if you've recently, a new superintendent was hired, we can verify that independently through the California School Directory or online through the district website. So in that case, you do not need to submit a 5003 if your superintendent's information is changing. If you notice on your application while you are filling out the industry and pathway information, there are a couple of pathways that are grayed out. The only reason for that is that those are the previously used names. You can still see them, but you won't be able to select them. In the application, only the new pathway names will be selected. If you have any questions about this, we definitely recommend checking out the CDE website, which has a listing of all of the current industry sectors and pathways. As Justin mentioned, there is currently a known issue with equipment-only projects. In that case, if you have an equipment-only project with 0 classrooms, for the purposes of submitting the application online at this time, you would list at least 1 classroom. We also recommend that you would include a cover letter or other Word document as an upload, a file upload to your application, just indicating that it is an equipment-only project. And when we do our review, we'll be able to see that and note that, even though 1 classroom is being requested on the application. When you are uploading a required document in the application dashboard or at the end of the application, it's not necessary to name the file in a certain way. We don't have a mandatory naming convention. And the reason for that is because when you upload a file, you are prompted to give it a description and also select a file type. That is helpful for us when reviewing the uploaded documents that you've submitted. However, we do recommend, just for ease of review and for your own ease of keeping track of all of your documents, that you include the district name and the type of document in the file name. As you can see, our examples like Sample Unified School District, Dsa Approval Letter, and that's sufficient. Another question that we've heard from the field is if you can respond to our 15-day and 4-day letters by submitting an updated version of the 5010 online. We will continue to send out the letters via physical mail and email. We won't be sending them to you through OPSC Online, at least not right now. However, in the past, instead of having to submit an updated paper copy of the 5010, you can now just submit that updated 5010 online as well. So again, we are trying to avoid the need for the submission of paper copies, and we would encourage you all to upload your documents and submit your applications online. And then, as Jonathan discussed, we currently do not support the deletion of uploaded documents once they've been uploaded to your application. We do recommend going into the description section if you do need to supersede a document and indicating either by a date or by the word superseded that you are uploading a document that is newer version of the one that you previously uploaded. So thank you so much for attending our workshop today. Here at OPSC, we are super excited about OPSC Online. We're really looking forward to doing our reviews of the CTE applications using the online system, and we really want to work with all of our stakeholders to make sure that the system is working for you as well. I do want to remind you all that OPSC Online is a work in progress. We are always adding new features, taking feedback from the field, and trying to make sure that it's working as best as possible for our stakeholders. If you have any questions or concerns at any time, please feel free to reach out to us. The top phone number there is a line designated specifically for the CTE program. And again, that is a great place to reach us instead of reaching out to individual PMs, because all of us have access to that phone line. If you have questions about the CTFP program specifically, we encourage you to reach out to our OPSC CTEFP email inbox. And again, all of us are checking that email inbox. If you have technical support questions when using OPSC Online, for example, one thing that we've seen happen a couple of times is that districts will have changed their domain name. In the past, it might have been .k12.ca.us, and now it's .org. In that case, you would need a new account created since the email address is tied to your username. And those are the kinds of technical support questions that you can reach out to our technical support email about. I'll go ahead and leave this up while we answer any questions from the audience. Feel free to take a picture or write any of these down. But again, I wanted to say thank you for joining us today, both those of you that are here in person and those of you that watched our webcast. Any questions from the audience? Yes?
I don't know if I missed it.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yeah.
It's in there. The letters of support, are you suggesting doing them one at a time or are they large PDF?
So,
With 10 or 15?
sure. Sure. So for uploading letters of support as a required document, we would definitely recommend just doing whatever's easier for you. If they come into you as separate PDFs, you should be able to go ahead and upload them all separately. If it's easier for you to upload one file with all of your letters of support, you can do that as well. The only thing that might be easier for you when keeping track of the documents that you've uploaded in your application is having separate files labeled by who sent in the letter of support. So it's really up to you and your ease of understanding about your files.
I actually want to clarify something regarding the letters of support. That's actually part of the CDE grant application that we don't need to be submitted to OPSC. So you don't need to attach those files. And we did not mention that in the presentation, but we should have. Any other questions? Yes.
Sure.
I just want to make sure that they're not going to run into a problem with the inflation factor, the allowance for 10% that John had mentioned earlier, assuming that if an application went in 2 years ago and the request for new construction was $2.8 million and it was increased by 10%, they would now be showing a different number that you have to figure out at that point. Is there going to be a discrepancy or a problem with the
So I think Tracy will provide an answer to that question. But to restate it, the question is if the application was submitted, let's say a while ago, and the project costs have increased by over 10%, will the district run into any problems because that 10% cap is exceeded?
So thank you for that question. Actually, I did ask Fred Jaeger of CDE about that at the beginning of today's workshop, in that he said that the score letter will be updated in some manner to reflect that, how they were talking about how you would submit it to CDE. If it is just a 10% increase, they'll look at it. If everything's the same, they'll accept that budget increase. So you'll have something that comes with your score letter that reflects an update. Anything else? I didn't see any questions come in online. I was monitoring the box, so we don't have any coming from outside yet. And we'll be here for a little bit. If any of you who are in the audience want to talk about things offline, we are good to go. And I just want to say thank you to my team. They did an awesome job today. And thank you, CDE, for coming and sharing this time with us. We look forward to all those applications coming in very soon. That closes our workshop for today.